Welcome to episode 109 of the Lowdown Radio Show, presented by advrider.com. I'm Neil Graham. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has an opinion on Harley-Davidson. The company whose stock not so many years ago was a safer bet than gold has fallen upon challenging times. And all this from a company, according to analyst Michael Ularic, that in its heyday turned a profit of nearly 30% on each motorcycle sold, when the industry average is near the mid-single digits. In the fat years, Harley-Davidson was indeed a license to print money. No more. Past Harley CEOs have tried seemingly everything to right the ship. There's been the hard wire, the rewire, and the string myself up with wire. And as much fun as speculating on the future of Harley is, this week we speak to someone with skin in the game, a Harley dealer. George Gatau owns Three Rivers Harley-Davidson near Pittsburgh. He also owns Gatau Cycle, a Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, CF Moto, and Royal Enfield dealership. He's a busy man with a bad back who knows of what he speaks. Gatau Cycle, since 1964. Who started the business?
My mom and dad. My dad's George Sr. and my mother Loretta. They were a great partnership.
And what did they sell in the early days, George?
Oh, geez. My dad started with Suzuki in 64, and he could never get the big lines that he wanted. So he had a whole bunch of lines that have come and gone. Bultaco, Mako, Hodaka. He had Bridgestone at one point.
Yeah.
I think he did BSA for a short period of time, like when the British. So I remember, like the Japanese I'll call it the Japanese invasion,
yes.
The paradigm shift when the Japanese came in and just wiped out all the British brands, and that was fairly early in my career. I was really young, and then he had Bultaco, Mako, Hodaka, those brands, and they were popular for a few years, but they none of them made it. They were cool brands, and that's all we could get back then.
Here's a confession for me. I had a Hodaka and a Bridgestone, Combat Wombat, and they had the best names, didn't they? Hodaka,
yeah. Super Rat, Combat Wombat, yep.
Super
cool brand. There's a couple great YouTube videos that somebody did on some of those brands, and it brings back a lot of great memories.
I think Harley-Davidson should have a Super Rat. I think that would be, and I bet it would do well. That's the thing. Now, what are your memories of your first involvement in your parents' business? What do you remember as a kid?
So our business is on one of the rivers, the Allegheny River, and there was a bridge. We lived on one side of the bridge, and the business was on the other side of the bridge. So I used to ride my little 20-inch bicycle across the bridge. And, the bikes leaked oil back then. The Triumphs, they would put the oil in the swing arm or in the frame.
Yes,
and
yeah.
It leaked oil all over the place. And we had, part of the floor was just like a vinyl tile. And I remember coming in with the red shop rags and the solvent and having to wipe the oil spots up. And then he had an area that had real small limestone, that the bikes would leak oil into the limestone. And I would scoop the oil-soaked limestone up, throw it in the parking lot. And there was a pile of limestone. I would put the fresh limestone down. So I was a little kid.
Kind of like basically like cleaning the cat box, isn't it?
Oh yeah, litter box. Yeah, painting the floors every year, patching we had hot tar roofs. I used to go patch the roofs. Whatever needed done. My dad taught us how to do that stuff, and to this day, I can wire, I can plumb, I can plaster. It's all because of growing up poor. We did that stuff ourselves.
And you really did. I mean, you grew up in a dealership, didn't you?
Grew up in a dealership. When I was a real little, my mom had like a love seat. I used to sleep on the love seat. I'd go empty the garbage cans and, clean up, put tools away, stock oil shelves, that kind of stuff. I mean, I worked parts. I think I was in 6th, 7th grade. I worked in the parts department. We had cards. There was an index card for every part number.
For every part number across every brand.
A big table that just had different colored index cards. And Bultaco was blue and Suzuki was yellow and Triumph was green, and you'd have an index card for every part, and you would, you'd start with, I have 10 of these on stock. And every time you'd sell one, you'd put the date and how many you sold and how many were left. That was our inventory control.
So when did your parents begin to phase out of the business, and when did you sort of come into a more managerial position?
So my dad, I'll talk about my dad real quick. My dad, I love him to death. He's Italian. He's got a temper. I don't like tempers. I don't like strife. I don't like, combative. I don't like it. It's a negative to me. So when I was in probably 9th grade, he started to do bicycles. That was the bicycle boom of the 70s. And he brought in these, Schwinn and these 10 speeds and what have you. And I started to work in the bicycle shop because it was like my own gig. And I actually ran that through high school. And then I ran it when I went to college because I went to a branch campus at Penn State. And then when I got out of college, was running bicycles, met my wife, who's a physical therapist. You know, it all fits, physical therapist, bicycles. And I was really big in the bicycle business. I had 5 stores. We were doing almost $5 million a year with it. The problem was I couldn't figure out how to make money with it. You know, my wife was a PT and she's making 3 times what I was making. And,
Right.
I always liked the motorcycle side, but that was mom and dad, and I did bicycles. And then it was probably the mid 2000s. There was a company in the bicycle industry called Catalyst Communications. They were a big marketing company, and they did this big thing called Super Sale. They were wonderful people to do business with. And what I saw in the early 2000s was the bicycle business was consolidating. The brands were going bankrupt. I mean, Schwinn went bankrupt 3 times. My friends at Cannondale went bankrupt. All these companies were going under, and the channels of distribution were changing. And as a dealer, you're looking at, Bell and Giro helmets or dealer only helmets. Next thing they're selling them at Walmart and they're selling them online. And, we looked at our channels were drying up, and I just didn't see a future in the bicycle business. So mid 2000s, I sat down with my parents, and in fact, it was probably about that time. My dad, he was 55. He had quintuple bypass surgery, and it was stress related. And
Right.
that's really when he backed out of the business at 55 years old. And my mom needed help running it, so I was running bicycles and helping with motorcycles. I saw that we were making a lot of money with Harley-Davidson, and we weren't making a lot of money with bicycles. Although I loved that business and I love the people, I still have a lot of friends there today. Um, I just didn't see a future in it, commoditized. So I one by one closed or sold bicycle stores, and then I bought a second Harley Davidson dealership in 2007 in Pittsburgh, and that's our only Harley store right now because we actually had 3, and we consolidated 3 into one big one.
I wanted to ask you about the Harley Davidson thing. So, because you in 2007 is 2007 when you consolidated?
No, that's when I bought the second Harley store.
When you bought the second?
We consolidated about 3 years ago.
3 years ago. So going back to 2007, which is very close to the peak for Harley Davidson in terms of sales, selling 340, the numbers vary, but around 350,000 bikes, per year. And one of the things that is an analyst that joins us on this podcast, Michael Ularic, and he says that the Harley Davidson at that point was the envy of the motorcycle industry because Harley Davidson would make up to 30% on a motorcycle when the industry average would be mid-single digit. So Harley was going great guns. Take me to the sales floor in those heady days. What was it like back then?
Oh, it was fantasy land. I mean, there were more people that wanted to buy Harley Davidsons, new and used, than there was product. And Harley could not ramp up production quick enough. And there was a line of people to buy bikes. I mean, you'd get a bike, you'd be lucky if it even hit the sales floor. And if one got canceled, boom, it was gone. I mean, you didn't need CRMs, you didn't need these, you didn't need a sales process. It was just people lined up to buy the vehicles. And then over time, that it became realistic, where you actually had to have salespeople that could sell and that could work a CRM and take people through the process. And then you got the Jochen Zeitz years, that were just the most horrendous years I've ever
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But was the transition from this boom where you said that if guy A didn't buy it, guy B was there ready to take it. Did you feel the transition coming? Did you feel the company slowing down, or was it? Did it feel like it could never end?
No, they told us it was going to end.
Oh, they did.
They were very clear about it. I mean, that's one thing with Harley. Up until up until the Jay-Z years, the relationship with the motor company was just incredible. I mean, you could have open conversations with the CEO anytime you wanted to have a conversation.
So you as a dealer, you could pick up the phone and call the CEO.
Oh, heck yeah. Matt Levitich, I still talk to Matt. Great guy.
Right.
That's the way they operated the business. Yes, it was still a business. And some people say it was a family. I mean, it's still a business. But you could have conversations with Matt, with Mike Kennedy. I mean, I got to be great friends with these guys. And we didn't always agree on everything, but you could talk it out. You could have those
Right.
discussions.
Right.
That all changed, with Jay-Z.
Now you've lived through a bunch of different eras of Harley Davidson. Of course, every CEO comes in and they have their vision for the company, and they have to keep guys like you happy. They have to keep shareholders happy. And it seems, at least from the outside, almost like an impossible task. I know what you mentioned. You mentioned Matt Levittich, who had the More Roads to Harley-Davidson, as he called it, where he envisioned a really broad portfolio of bikes. And I should mention here that you're not just a Harley guy, because you've sold bicycles, but you also have another dealership that has the 4 major Japanese brands, plus CF Moto and Royal Enfield. So you're all over the place. So
Runners and pontoon boats too.
yeah, and pontoon boats, should you need one. And you're on the river, as you mentioned. Um, but And then after Levittich was Jochen Zeitz, his idea was to focus on the high margin bikes that made the most profit, to reduce production. I mean, where do you sit amid all this? Because those seem to me on the outside like very sort of opposed views of Harley-Davidson. What's your take on that, of those two guys?
Well, I mean, even previous to Matt Levittich, it was very similar. They knew that the baby boomers, they showed us statistics. The baby boomers, the number of baby. In fact, I'll back up. They showed us data that showed people at certain ages in their lifespan is when they buy a Harley Davidson. When you're too young, you're spending money on college, you're spending money on your first house, your first car, furniture. Then you get married, you have kids. You don't have the money to buy a Harley. That after the kids are grown out of the house, that's the peak years to buy a Harley Davidson. Up until you're probably in your 70s, when you're not riding anymore. Then they came out with a trike to extend that. They told us that. They showed us the statistics on baby boomers. There's going to be less people of these ages to buy these vehicles from us. They're going to have the income and the time. We knew that was coming. Did we think it would change as quick as it did? Probably not. You hope those good times are going to stay forever. But we knew that was coming. So you go to Levittich. I really liked Matt. I liked a lot of what Matt did. My understanding was the board was not happy with the numbers, and that they pushed Matt out. Now, who led the board was Jochen Zeitz. Jochen Zeitz was chairman of the board. They told us they were going to hire a new CEO. Jochen came in as a interim president and CEO. Problem was he stayed, and he's not a motorcycle guy. I mean, neither is Artie Stars, but the two different types of management here. So I shouldn't have used that term. Jochen Zeitz, he's a stock guy. He's about the shareholders. He's about the stock value. He's about the board of directors. The dealer level, it was a complete paradigm shift, and it was a paradigm shift to hell. Put it that way. I don't know how.
Well, take me maybe through some of the specifics. I mean, for those of us who aren't in your position, and I think there's a huge disconnect between enthusiasts like me and people listening to this, and guys like you. We buy our stuff from you, but we really don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I think this is part of the reason that people get frustrated at dealers. And I'm sure you guys can get frustrated at consumers, because we don't necessarily know what you need to function, to survive. Mm-hmm. So what is it about Zeitz that didn't work for you?
Arrogant, condescending, didn't listen to his leadership team, didn't listen to his dealers, didn't listen to his customers. He was the smartest guy in the room, and if you tried to talk to him, he'd get mad and storm and just walk out of the room, because he
Really?
was everybody else. But he was all about the stock price. He actually put together a plan. My understanding is he was very involved with the pay plan that he put together for himself. And his pay plan, I don't know the specifics, but it was something like if he was able to hit some magic number with a stock value, he was going to get a humongous bonus, like some kind of a $50 million bonus.
Right.
Stock up to 70 or some number like that. But his management style was not conducive to Harley-Davidson. I don't think he's a bad person, but he was absolutely positively the wrong person to run Harley-Davidson motorcycles. I can't say one good thing about the guy. He was horrible. He cut our margins back. He started to sell clothing. Harley was already selling clothing on e-commerce, but dealers made a percentage of everything that was sold in our DAT, which is our zip codes, our territory.
Yes.
We made a little bit of money on that, so we were happy with that. It wasn't the margin we normally made, but we were able to make a reasonable margin on it.
Right.
He took that margin all away and dropped it down to a couple percent.
And just to clarify for people, so if it means a guy 10 miles from your store buys a T-shirt online, then you get a certain percentage based that he's just local to you, correct?
That's how the territories worked,
Right.
and that worked good for many years. But Jochen Zeitz, in fact, I have friends that were at a dealer advisory council meeting when he said, "That's my money, not yours." So this is this guy's mindset. So he basically took our margins down to a couple pennies per item. And what happened, and we kept trying to tell him, you're taking customers out of the store. People that come in the store weekly, monthly, that would come in to buy a ball cap, that would walk out with 4 or 5 items and see that new shiny chrome bike or that blacked out bike or the
Yeah.
used bike that they wanted, they would buy that motorcycle. You took them out of the store. We count door swings in automotive and power sports. You count how many door swings you get. Our door swings dropped precipitously. I mean, they dropped way off. And you try to talk to him about it, and he wouldn't listen. I mean, one of the first things Artie Starr said is, "We're changing this e-commerce thing. It's taking customers out of the store," and he changed it. They were not just selling clothing; they were selling clothing and parts, and they were pricing them aggressively, so we couldn't even compete with this stuff. They were discounting the crap out of it.
So we'll get to Artie Starrs in a moment, who's the new CEO of Harley-Davidson. But in terms of the product idea of the Levitich, a broader portfolio of bikes of Harley-Davidson's versus Zeitz's idea, of limiting the production, keeping to the high margin bikes. Where do you fit on that in terms of just as a product only approach?
So I'm gonna Zeitz. I think he did the Stellantis mess. The Stellantis with Dodge and Chrysler and Jeep. They looked at COVID numbers as being realistic. COVID was fantasy land, and we
Right.
experienced that for 2 years. We will never see that again. We sold everything we could get our hands on in power sports and Harley. Any product we could get went right out the door at full margin because what consumers don't understand is when things get marked down because they're not selling or there's too many of them. It's an inventory situation. If they sits too long, it's like a clothing store. If you're, I have a Spider fleece on today. The Spider makes these fleeces and the green one sells real well and the blue one doesn't. They mark the blue one down to get rid of it when it sits for so many days. It's the same thing in the motorcycle world. So stuff sits. So COVID was crazy high margins, crazy high volume. I think he believed that COVID what the future held. Uh,
Really?
Now, none of us thought COVID was going to last forever, but we thought it would be a gradual decline. COVID those numbers fell off a cliff when interest rates went up and the cash that the federal government was giving consumers to go out and spend, when that dried up, those sales in power sports and all recreational products, bicycles still haven't recovered,
No.
RVs, motorcycles, boats, that all those businesses that were selling record high product fell off a cliff. So Stellantis looks at their products and says, well, we can only build X amount of vehicles. So we're only going to make the most expensive Jeeps and Dodges and Chryslers, and we're just not going to make those lower price vehicles because if we can only build so much, we're going to build the high price stuff. And that's exactly what Zeitz did. Now, as that stuff changed, and we were all telling Zeitz, you got to bring back these lower price vehicles. Why the hell did you cut Sportster? We need Sportster back. He didn't listen to anything anybody said. I mean, Harley's management was a revolving door of people that the consumers didn't see. We saw it. All the people we had relationship with, the ones that couldn't work with Zeitz, and that was a lot of them, just said, "I'm out of here. This guy's killing the company, killing the brand," and they left, or he fired them. And then he brought in people from all over the country, and he shut down uh, Juneau Avenue, which was where the original factory. That's where all the people were. I was on Harley's dealer advisory council for 3 years. We had meetings there for 3 years, 3, 4 meetings a year, and we would meet with all the president, vice president, directors, and they would all ask a lot of questions, and we'd have some really great conversations about baby boomers and new products. So where do I'm being long-winded here. Where do I fall on the between Matt Levitich with more vehicles? I think there's going to be a happy medium somewhere in the middle. Zeitz cut too much out. And cutting that Sportster was a huge mistake. And you just saw Artie Starrs on Tuesday announced the Sportster's coming back. Why is the Sportster coming back? The dealers want the Sportster back. The riders want a Sportster back. So we're going to have an air-cooled Sportster that meets EPA requirements, and we're going to have it in 2027. Now, exactly when, I don't know. But we actually knew about that in October, but we were sworn to secrecy.
Yes.
But he's a very transparent guy. I know the consumers make the statement that, well, he's from Pizza Hut and Top Golf. I
Yeah.
don't care where he used to work. He listens. He makes sure that the people he listens to are the right ones to listen to, because he's not listening to the wrong people. He's listening to the right ones, and he gets his data. and he makes decisions and he gets stuff done. I mean, I don't think they could have picked a better leader for the motor company than Artie Starrs right now. This he's phenomenal.
Looking at Harley-Davidson, it's almost a recreation for motorcycle enthusiasts because everybody's got an opinion. You know, you should do this. They should do this. Why don't they do this? They should bring this back. They should cut that. And one of the things that's always fascinated me about Harley-Davidson and small capacity bikes, and I know they've done it for years. In the 60s, they did it with Ermaki's rebranded Italian bikes, and they had 2-strokes. It's always seemed to me, and I'm curious in your opinion, but it always seemed to me that Harley has just never had their heart in small capacity motorcycles. Now, I know they for years made great margins on the big bikes, and you're not going to make that kind of margin on small bikes. One of the criticisms from industry people that I've heard about the street line, the 500 and the 750, were that Harley spec'd it so poorly that the bikes weren't very good, but they wanted to keep really good margins on bikes that you just can't sell for that price and make that much money. I mean, how do you feel about Harley and small bikes? Because I've often thought that like the Honda Rebel or the Yamaha Virago 250 were the perfect beginner bikes for Harley, because it seemed like everybody would go there, learn how to ride, then go to a Harley. But my question to you is it important for Harley to have their own branded small capacity bikes?
Sportster, absolutely. I mean, Sportster was up to 25% of their production at one point. But of course, Jay-Z looked at it and said, well, we're making not just less margin on this bike, it's less dollars because it's $10,000 bike. So during COVID, it probably made sense I wouldn't have got rid of it altogether, but just reduce it and work and spend more of your production time on the bigger dollar bikes. But he cut it out completely. Not only did he cut it out, he sold all the equipment. All the equipment's gone. All the stampers that would make the fuel tanks and the fenders, and it's gone. All that equipment's they auctioned it off.
It disappeared. Yeah, it's gone.
Gone. So Artie has to start all over again to bring the Sportster back. I'm very excited for the Sportster. It will probably again be 20-25% of our sales. And okay, we'll make less money on it, but what people don't, people think we make these huge profit margins on everything.
And you really don't, do you?
No. I sat down with my employees one day, and this was years ago. I pulled a $100 bill out of my pocket and I said, of this $100 at the end of the year, how much is left over for the owners of this dealership? And I had people saying 40, 50 cents, $40 to $50.
Yeah.
100. And I'm like, so you think we keep 40% of everything we sell? I'm like, we don't even make that in clothing. We don't make 40% on clothing. So what about all these other expenses? My insurance, my taxes, my, facility expenses. People don't understand that. I'm a numbers guy. All right. I'll get criticized that I'm not out riding thousands of miles every year. I'm a business guy. I ride a little bit. I do love motorcycles, but I'm a business guy. I took a lot of accounting courses. I was a business major in college. I'm a huge proponent of 20 groups for dealers. A 20 group came from the auto industry. Basically, there's up to 20 dealers, and every month we compare our numbers. So I can look at all the other dealers in my group's numbers for new motorcycles. I can see how many they sold, profit margin. I can see how many dollars they made in F&I. I can see how many parts they sold per vehicle sold. I mean, this is the stuff I do daily. So when people ask me how much is a Dunlop tire and I don't have an answer for them, it's because I don't sell Dunlop tires. I don't, the parts department does that.
Yeah, I understand.
But I don't know. I'm off track. Sorry.
But no, but how much? But out of let's pursue that a little bit. Out of that $100, what would you take home as an owner at the end of the day?
An average motorcycle dealership before this last couple of years, this mess, typically 5%.
Right.
5% is a good number. Some of the best operators in the country might take 10, 11%. But that's a really great operation, making those kind of numbers. Now during COVID, we exceeded all those numbers because there was no aged inventory that you had to discount. None.
I've heard COVID described by a dealer as the single best and the single worst thing that ever happened to his dealership.
Oh yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Pennsylvania, we were shut down for 10 weeks, and we had no idea when we were going to get open back up again. Guys in my 20 group in other states were open when Pennsylvania shut us down.
Right.
We had weekly Zoom meetings, and I actually I was about 5 weeks into this, and I'm sitting on $7 million worth of vehicle inventory, and I'm still paying floor plan. I'm still going into the dealership and paying my payables, and I said to my 20 group, I said, I have all this inventory. You guys want some inventory? And they're like, wait, hold on, George. We'll take all your inventory. But what you need to understand what we're saying. We're in states that aren't shut down. We're selling everything we can get our hands on. And what you need to understand is all the manufacturers, they're shut down. They are producing nothing. So inventory, when things open up, there's not going to be any inventory. So my 20 group basically said, George, not only should you not sell any of your inventory, you need to go buy whatever you can get your hands on. And we don't care if it's brands you carry or if you can pick up additional brands. You need to buy everything you can buy because whatever's on the ships on the way into the ports, that's all there is. There's nothing. There's going to be a huge shortage. So I did that, and we experienced numbers that we never thought we'd experience.
So let me get this straight. So you're paying wages, you're paying all your expenses, your store is closed for 10 weeks, and the natural instinct for me would be to panic and get everything out of there.
Cut everything.
And you did the opposite. You listened to this group, and you got in as much as you could.
I did. I mean, I did cut whatever expenses I could. I cut the company that brings the shop rags and the company that does the garbage. There was no garbage to pick up, so I shot it. I shot it.
Yeah.
But
you didn't fireball motorcycles out the door.
No, I was going to. My 20 group saved my butt. They're like, no, George, we'll take everything you have, but you need to order more. And I did. And they told me in the power sports side, there's these brands that you could probably pick up that we've picked up that you can get product from because Kawasaki, Honda, they're out. They've got nothing. And so we picked up some other brands, especially kids stuff. So the kids stuff's a really great story. For years, Harley, we would talk about the baby boomers, the numbers are decreasing. We're going to see less sales. We need to sell to different ethnic groups. We need to sell to younger riders. We need to sell to women. We need to go other than just white male baby boomers. And one of the problems we discussed is I grew up riding dirt bikes and my friends all grew up riding dirt bikes. We all had little Hondas, little, Suzukis, what have you. As time went on, kids quit riding dirt bikes and the prices got so expensive from the Japanese vendors. I mean, little Honda Z50, and I don't know the exact price now, but I think they're upper. I don't think they're $2,000, but I think they're probably pushing that.
Yeah.
I mean, people just can't afford to go buy these dirt bikes for kids anymore. So these riders, like my age, we started on dirt bikes. We got into bigger dirt bikes. Then we got into small CC street bikes. Then we got into Harleys. That was gone for many years. COVID, we sold hundreds and hundreds of kids' dirt bikes. So I believe that those kids that rode those dirt bikes, as they get to the age where they can ride small CC street bikes, that they're going to buy them. And as they get older, that they're going to buy some bigger CC street bikes. So I think we're going to see a nice bump from all these kids that got dirt bikes during COVID. And that's something most people don't talk about.
Artie stars. I mean, you're bullish on stars, and I think you're right. A lot of people were very skeptical, and there was kind of a joke running around the moto biz about the top golf guy and what's he know about motorcycles. But you've liked what you've seen so far.
Yeah, so I got lucky. It's a small world. My dad has a friend in Dallas, Texas, that manufactures building materials. He does a lot of limestone for like lentils, and he does these slate shingles, and he's big in these building materials. Anyways, the day after they announced Harley hired Artie Starr as a CEO, I saw it, my stomach dropped. I'm like, oh my God, they could have hired Mike Kennedy. They could have hired, Scott Wine from Polaris. They could have hired, all these industry people. They hired this guy. A day after they had made the announcement, this friend of my dad's calls him up. His name's Art. And my dad's 87 years old. And he says, George, because I have a really good friend here in Dallas. We're going to golf today and have dinner with our wives. He goes, he's a great guy. He goes, he just got hired as the CEO of Harley. He wants to talk to you. My dad's like, I'm 87. He wants to talk to my son. My son's, he's real active with the Harley Dealer Association and National Power Sports Dealer Association. And you want to talk to him. He knows a lot more than I do. So the next day I get the phone call from Artie Stars. We spent an hour and a half on the phone. He talked a lot about the customer experience. He talked a lot about, before he even interviewed, he went and bought a Harley-Davidson motorcycle and all the items to go along with it: helmet, gloves, boots, the whole, what his experience was at the dealership, the different dealerships. He said, before I even wanted to apply for this job, because I wanted to know what this was all about. So give him credit. He went out and bought a bike.
Yeah.
And then he just asked a ton of questions. And he said, he goes, George, you're a business guy. I grew up in the business world. We were talking about YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I've been a member of this YPO group here in Pittsburgh for years. He has friends in Dallas that are members of YPO, and we're talking about YPO. And he's like, he goes, I don't start working at Harley for about 2.5 months. I start the first week of October. He said, because I'm with Top Golf right now and we're in the middle of some stuff. And what I found out is it was sold. They were selling Top Golf. Callaway way overpaid for it. I think they paid like 16 or 18 times earnings for it. And
Oh,
they were
wow.
selling it off. So he wanted to get that sale done before he moved over to Harley. He goes, but because I want to do my homework before I start. He goes, can you give me the name of some dealers that are in the know that I should talk to? Because one of the discussions we had beyond customer experience was that uh, he has to listen to the right people. If he listens to the wrong people, they're going to tell him that Jochen Zeitz was correct, and we all know
Right.
Jochen Zeitz was not correct. And I will tell you, our dealer organization did everything we could possibly do to help get him out of office because I believe if it wasn't for H Partners and the dealer organization pushing him out, that he'd still be chairman of the board and he'd still be calling the shots there because that's the kind of guy he is. Total control on it. It's just how he is. So, anyways, so he says, okay, so I want to talk to the right people. Who do you recommend I talk to? I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm just a dealer, Artie. He goes, no, I respect your opinion. I've heard good things from other people that you do a good job and you're somebody I should talk to. And who do I want to talk to? So I gave him the name of 6 dealers. He called every one of them and had long, multiple conversations with these guys. And these are guys that are in the know. Bubba Boswell down in Nashville. Um, uh, uh, Scott Maddox has stores in that area. He talked. I mean, bunch of really good dealers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he called me back and says, "Okay, you talked about all these former Harley leaders. Who should I talk to?" I gave him named 6 Harley leaders. He called every one of them, talked to him. He went and visited them. He went and spent a couple days with Matt Levatich. He went and spent a couple days with Keith Wendell, who was the CEO before Matt.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he's spent more than multiple farm. I mean, he spent a lot of time with these guys, asking a lot of questions. He talked to Mike Kennedy, he talked to Scott Miller, he talked to all, and then he called up and said, "Well, who else should I talk to?" And I just kept feeding him names, and he kept calling all these guys, or he would fly out to see them. And I'm like, wow, this guy,
Is it fair to say that's unheard of?
it's unheard of.
Right.
But that's what this guy's all about. He wanted to learn everything he could learn. So when he starts at Harley, his first day at Harley is the dealer show in Milwaukee. It's his first day.
Wow.
You know what he did that first day? He was on the floor the entire time, walking around talking to dealers and dealership employees. The whole time he was there, he was accessible. He was talking to everybody. He was asking questions. He carries a notepad. He came to Pittsburgh, and I got to spend I had like a 4-hour dinner with him. And then the next morning, he came to my dealership, and he spent a couple hours talking to my staff. What's working? What's not working? He did my parts department. And he says, well, because I like that you guys carry almost all Harley product, but I see some aftermarket. Why do you have aftermarket? My staff's like, well, pretty simple. We carry seats, we carry lighting, we carry windshields, and we carry exhaust because Harley stuff sucks. And he's like, okay, tell me more. And he's taking notes, writing this all down. Well, during the earnings report, he just said, we're going to focus more on these accessory items that we've ignored
Right.
because this is business we've given away. This is just the kind of guy he is. So as a leader of a company that carries a product that's an emotionally charged, Harley's a very emotionally attached product. I mean, the brand name is just, it draws people from all different walks of life. He's the right guy. He is absolutely the right guy.
What do you feel about, I mean, he mentioned or announced that there's going to be a 883cc Sportster, not made from the old tooling, of course, as you mentioned, because it no longer exists. Seemingly for the 27 riding season, I would think, as you mentioned. But what about this 440cc bike? How do you feel about, we've always thought of Harley, at least in recent years, as the Sportster line being the way in. But of course, a lot of the brands that you sell, a lot of the Japanese brands and Enfield have smaller bikes, 350s, 400s. Does Harley need to compete in that category? Or is it a bike that's always going to be something you move from another brand to?
If it's priced accordingly, I think they'll sell well because people embrace the brand. My daughter's 26. Her friends are not buying street glides and road glides. They want small CC bikes, and they love the brand. The only way they can get into the brand is they've got to buy a used bike. Now, we do a tremendous business with used motorcycles. Used Sportsters are golden right now. I mean, they're just gold. People are paying over retail for these bikes.
Even in this economy.
Oh yeah, the used Sportsters. We get 883s that are blacked out, or 1100s that are blacked out, like the 883 irons.
Yeah.
We can't get them at the auctions or buy them off the street because they're just in such high demand. So that Sprint. So I was on Harley's dealer advisory council when they introduced the Street. Now, when Matt Levatich took the sheet off of it, said this is something we're going to have in another year, and they told us the MSRP on it, I'm like, that's going to sell. We're going to do really well with that. The problem was when they finally brought it to market, it was like almost $2,000 more than what they said it was going to be originally. So I don't know what happened. If it was margin, if it was, the cost was just too high. But if that bike would have been the price they said it was going to be, we could have sold a lot of Streets. It was overpriced for the value of the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much that it was a bad bike; it was just a bad bike at that price.
Exactly, it was too expensive. So this is another thing that that consumers always tell us we want made in America. It's got to be made in America. The consumers are not willing to pay extra money for made in American products.
No, that's true. Yes,
people do not walk the talk, and I don't want to make people mad saying this, but this is my viewpoint as a dealer. People said we want made in America T-shirts, we want made in America leathers. Harley made them. They would not buy them. I'm not paying $10 more for a T-shirt or $9 more for a T-shirt. I don't care. I'll buy the Chinese one. I'm not paying $75, $100 more for a leather jacket. I'll buy this one. People won't walk the talk. It was the same thing when they came out with the Rev Max bikes, especially the Nightster. When that bike was made in the U.S., they were like $14,000 starting price. People wouldn't pay it. It wasn't worth the $14,000. As soon as they moved it to Thailand, people were all writing nasty stuff all over the internet and nasty YouTube videos. But guess what? We sell out of them now. It's not your baby boomer that's all about made in America that's buying that bike. It's the people my daughter's age. They're in their 20s and their 30s. They don't care where it's made. They don't. If a Hyundai has better specs for the money than a Chevrolet, they're buying the Hyundai. They don't care about that. It's a world economy. People also don't understand that the companies that hold all the patents and all the technology on certain component parts aren't in the U.S. and it's not Harley-Davidson. Like suspension is typically Showa. There's only companies that make fuel injection systems. A lot of the controls are made outside of the country. People don't understand it. We want it made in America, but guess what? You can't make a lot of this stuff in America. But a lot of what they do make here on the bigger bikes, the more expensive bikes, they make as much as they can here. So Sprint, I think we can sell them if they're priced right. Now they're telling us they're going to be probably $5,000 under $6,000 is what the rumors we're hearing. If that's the case and it's spec well, I think we'll sell some. Am I going to sell a ton of them? No. But we are a Royal Enfield dealer at our power sports store. Man, what a great bike for the money.
Well, you mentioned Royal Enfield, and I really want to talk to that because you're in a not a unique position because you're not the only guy that sells Harleys and other kinds of motorcycles, but you are in an interesting position. And I think of Royal Enfield kind of as, oddly enough, because they were nearly dead not so many years ago, but it's almost a perfect motorcycle company, I think, because the bikes are inexpensive, they have character, they're well built, they seem to appeal to what we want in a motorcycle, something with character. We're not going to ride it to work 10 months a year. What could Harley-Davidson learn from Royal Enfield?
It's funny how everything just touches something else. Rod Copes was a senior VP for Harley-Davidson. After Rod Copes left Harley-Davidson, he was the guy that brought Royal Enfield back into the U.S. They had a crappy distribution system. Rod was the guy that in Milwaukee brought Royal Enfield back. Well, Rod actually went to some of the higher ups at Harley, and this came from Rod telling me the story. He went to Harley and said, "Hey, we got these great little bikes. Why don't we market them through Harley dealers?" And it got poo-pooed. I mean,
Oops.
What a difference that would have made if we were selling a Royal Enfield at a Harley-Davidson dealership. It'd be a whole different story today. We never would have had the Street that was overpriced. We wouldn't be looking at these Sprints.
Would they have been, George? Would they have been rebranded Harley-Davidson or just sold as Enfield? You don't know.
He said went in, saw a couple of the higher ups, and he said they basically chased them out of the building.
Because they would be perfect.
It's a perfect match.
They'd be a perfect match for Harley-Davidson because they've got character. They're kind of primitive and kind of lovable. And but what back to my question, what could Harley learn from what Royal Enfield has done? Because Royal Enfield is selling approximately 1 million motorcycles a year. now, up from nearly nothing not so many years ago. What do you see in Enfield that Harley could learn from?
I mean, it's a great classic design. It's very I mean, they're made in India, but they're very British looking. But one thing I'm gonna jump in the weeds real quick. On the power sports side, one of the things we're experiencing right now is another paradigm shift. We are seeing consumers, mainly younger consumers, aren't buying the big 4 brand Japanese brands. They're buying CF Moto, and we're seeing it on the power sports side. I dropped Polaris because I was selling so many CF Motos, and I could actually make a margin with CF Moto, where Polaris, their business model sucks. And they basically, you're selling, it's kind of, they have this fictitious MSRP, and then you've got to sell everything at cost. And if you hit your numbers for the month, then you get rebate incentive money back. Is how you make your money as a Polaris dealer. So it's a race to the bottom. So I got
Right.
rid of Polaris. I'm doing CF Moto. I'm out selling all my other brands with CF Moto. And then we brought CF Moto street bikes in. They're kicking everybody's butt. They make a great product for the money. So what can Harley learn from that? If they're going to compete in that line of product, they have to go to Asia or they have to go to India for that cheap labor to build vehicles. Now it could be their design. It could be can look like have some kind of Harley nostalgic qualities to it. But they're going to have to go over there and utilize those factories, whether it's Hero, whether it's Royal Enfield, whether it's there's a bunch. I don't know all the Asian ones. I
Yeah,
mean, we're
yeah.
those guys kicking the Japanese butt right now.
Now, the parallel has been made between what CF Moto is doing now, and of course, CF Moto came in and everybody said, "I'm not buying that Chinese shit," and of course, they did. Do you see the parallel? Back when you were this dirty-nosed kid cleaning the kitty litter from underneath your dad's lineup, I mean, the Japanese came in, and of course, we're not gonna buy that Jap scrap, and of course, they were beautifully made, beautifully engineered motorcycles. Do you see a parallel between what CF Moto is doing now and other Chinese brands? Because 'Cause they're on the march, and the Japanese situation in the '60s?
They get better every year.
Right.
I picked up CF Moto from my 20 group again. There were a couple of dealers that had CF Moto, and they said, "Yeah, these things, we got some problems with them." But we were also complaining about all the problems with Polaris. I had 2 full-time techs doing Polaris warranty and recall work. 2 full-time guys, that's all they did, and you lose money on every one of those recall warranty claims. And the quality of CF Moto was probably as bad as Polaris was at that time, maybe a little worse. But the quality today, I have more Japanese side-by-sides and ATVs in my store for repair than I have CF Motos right now. And we
Really?
sell way more CF Motos. So, do I want to buy and sell these Chinese products? No, I want to sell American products. But, if you're going to compete today, you can't do anything without that cheap labor over there. And like I said, they get better every year. The technology, the manufacturing, every year it gets better and better and better.
Harley-Davidson, I've always thought is a very unusual company, so just bear with me for a moment. When you think of, say, Ducati, these legacy so-called legacy brands, Ducati still manages to have this sort of boutique feel, and yet they pursue high technology. Their machines are not, really they might do a retro-y version, but they're really not, old-fashioned bikes. They're modern, high-tech bikes. And it seems that Harley-Davidson in their past, whenever they try anything, like the V-Rod, which I thought had one of the best engines I'd ever experienced in a motorcycle. Well, that didn't really work because it didn't really look like a Harley-Davidson's supposed to look. I mean, does a Harley always have to look like a 1952 Panhead? I mean, it almost seems like the people who love the brand, love it a little too much. I get the feeling they kind of stifle it. What's your view on that?
I think it's listening to the wrong people. It's always been a baby boomer brand, but there are younger generations that aren't white guys that look like Santa Claus in leathers. And buy a Harley. So they have to make products for those people. And that's one of the things that Matt Levitich was working on. Now, so maybe it was too aggressive. I don't know. I'm not that pay grade, but you know, I believe that they have other vehicles. Like Artie Starr said to me, he goes, "Why don't we have an automatic shifting motorcycle?" Because I came from not riding. Because it's intimidating looking at a automatic or a standard shift motorcycle.
Absolutely.
My daughter, I mean, there's barely any cars that are standard shift anymore. I'm a big muscle car guy. I like standard shift cars. I'm a
Yeah.
big Porsche guy. I'm 911 turbo. It's a standard. I'm not going to buy. I don't want Tiptronic shifting. I want to shift it myself. But the younger generation, I mean, you take a standard shift car and take it to an event, and they got young kids, doing the valet parking. They don't know how to drive it.
Well, I took my car into to for some work done, and the woman said, "Listen, do you mind pulling it in? Because I don't know how to drive a standard." I mean, it's only a few percent of the cars sold, but anyway, we're off topic. But Star is trying to reach out, and I mean, but back to this idea of the bikes seemingly anything that's non-traditional, and it seems like these old white guys, they get angry,
Mm.
and it's like, my Harley, my brand. I mean, they got the tattoo. Who's going to argue with them? It has to be this. Do you think that's been a mistake?
Well, I mean, you brought up 350,000 vehicles being sold in 2006. And, last year was, I don't know the exact number. Was it 120,000? Somewhere around.
It was 124,500 is the number I have.
So it's dropped that much. But there's a lot of old motorcycles out there. And, some of these guys that are doing the most griping on social media, they're riding a 2002 Fat Boy. Well, they haven't bought a bike for
Yeah, yeah.
24 years. But, they're very vocal about things. And, everybody's got their own opinion. And like that, I'll go right back to the first conversation I had with Artie. You got to listen to the right people. If you're listening to the guy riding the 2002 Fat Boy, you don't want to listen to that guy. I mean, yeah, he's a Harley rider, but he's not buying a new motorcycle. He's not going to buy a new motorcycle, and he'll give you all his opinions about why he doesn't like the new Road Glide because he doesn't like the look of the fairing, or he doesn't like the electronic gauges. But he's not a customer.
He's not going to buy it anyway.
Exactly. You need to talk to people that are going to buy. And they have to doubt in. They know who those people are. They know who can afford them. They know, they know down to male, female. Like when they look at my territory, they know how many bikes I can sell in a year because they know how much income per household. White, African American, Asian, Hispanic. They know all this, male, female. They have really good data on who is a potential buyer. And that's who Artie has to listen to, not the old timer that's not going to buy a new bike anyways. I mean, I respect the heck out of these guys who've been riding all their lives, but they're not buying a new bike. So, they really shouldn't have any say-so on what the new bikes.
How are things at your dealership right now? Because one of the things we hear is, of course, the used marketplace. There's a glut of Harley-Davidsons on the used market, and that's really impacting dealers' ability to sell new product. So how's and you mentioned you consolidated a couple of locations, 3 locations to 1?
3-1.
3 to 1. I mean, how are you doing now?
That was God sent. It saved me during the bad years.
Right.
If I had to run 3 stores with the overhead of 3 stores, it probably would have bankrupted me. But having all that consolidation into one store, it took my volume up. I had less overhead. So one of the problems today, and this is one of the discussions Artie and I had on early on, was that the cost of running a standalone Harley-Davidson dealership today with those decreased sales, you only have a couple options as a dealer to be profitable. And I know there's been a bunch of articles out there that the majority of Harley dealers lost money for the last 2 years. And the reason why is our overhead is really high. We got these beautiful, I have 42, almost 43,000 square feet here. It's not a small store.
And that's just for the Harley-Davidson wings.
Harley only.
Right.
And if I wasn't doing used, I would have been in the red. I did a lot of used bikes last. I mean, we've done last 2 years a lot of used bikes.
Right.
We do over 2 to 1. We'd like to get to 3 to 1 used and new. So as a dealer, a friend of mine, Bobby Eggstein, has a store up near the Poconos. Bob built a beautiful new Harley store. He had some tough decisions to make. What am I going to do to make this store profitable? He chose one route. He put in Triumphs and he put in Indian in the same building, and he's able to.
Well, I saw that recently. In fact, I saw that exact store recently, and I was surprised because my understanding was that you, as a Harley-Davidson dealer, you had very specific guidelines that you as a dealer had to adhere to in terms of floor space and how much accessories, and you were restricted. You couldn't have exhaust from Parts Unlimited vendor, and you certainly couldn't have another brand, God forbid. So has Harley relaxed that?
Yeah, it's been a moving target. They had to relax it. One thing Artie understands is dealer health, and he said it in the earnings call. And I forget exactly the sentence that he used, but he's like, our future is based on the dealers. If the dealers are successful, Harley-Davidson's successful. One quick story I want to tell.
Please, yeah.
I know I get in the weeds all the time.
No, the tangents are good. Tangents are good.
I said, Artie, I said, there's a playbook out there of a guy named Tom Dahl. He was the president and CEO of Subaru. He turned Subaru around. I said, I saw several videos on YouTube that the National Auto Dealer Association did interviewing Tom Dahl. I said, I'm going to send you a link tomorrow morning to watch these videos. You're really going to like what you see. Tom Dahl did a lot of the right things to get Subaru turned around. Next morning, I send him a link. I get a text back in 10 seconds. It says, I already looked them up. I already watched them. Thank you so much for these. This guy partnered with his dealers. He listened to his dealers. He listened to his customers. Already ended up hiring the marketing manager that ran Subaru's marketing.
Mm.
We hired him just a few months ago. And anyway, so Ozzie Giglio, who's a dealer friend of mine up in Chicago, who recently sold all his stores. He had Windy City. Ozzie knows Tom. I said, Artie, I can probably get you Tom's cell phone number if you want to talk to him. He's like, absolutely, I want to talk to him. So called Ozzie. Ozzie gets me the phone number. Artie talks to Tom. They've talked, I don't know how many times, a bunch of times, and they've compared notes. And I'm sure that Tom told Artie about Marcus, who was this phenomenal marketing guy that Artie just hired. And you saw they just announced a whole new marketing program, their new ride program.
The ride program, yeah.
Very happy about. So, it's just funny how these things all just happen behind the scenes.
But I always get the feeling that, and I talk to dealers and sometimes just talking to dealers. I mean, I'm no great businessman. God knows. I'm not like you. But I just get kind of like sweaty in the forehead thinking about the pressures. And it seems like there is this adversarial relationship because the manufacturer just wants that stuff out the door. And they're not really that concerned, at least this is what I'm told. They're not really that concerned whether you can sell it this week or 8 weeks from now. So, I mean, what is your relationship with brands like? I mean, you deal with so many brands. Are they kind of all the same? Are they all kind of pushy? Is it combative? Is that just the nature of the beast?
It can be, and it depends who's running the company at the time.
Right.
I mean, I walked away from Polaris, which is a phenomenal brand, but I hated their business model. I wasn't smart enough to figure out how to make money with them. I walked away from it. I mean,
right.
It's business is like putting out fires. I mean, you're just always running around putting out fires. You try to put in processes and procedures to put some semblance of order and how things are working. But, it basically boils down to your team. And if you've got some team member that, something happens in their life outside of work and they go to crap at work, it affects the whole dealership. So you're always trying to make sure you have good processes, procedures. You do things like join a 20 group so that you know what great looks like. Like you brought up Ducati a while ago. I mean, there were a couple guys in my 20 group of Sky Power Sports down in Florida. I mean, phenomenal operation, and the guys that run it are just some of the smartest people I've ever met in the industry. Huge Ducati dealers. I mean, we had Ducati. I wasn't smart enough to figure out how to do business with Ducati. I couldn't make it work. Now, you mentioned the adversarial relationship. It changes over time. So for Harley, it was always fantastic. I bragged about what a great relationship I had with people at Harley. I knew their names. I had their cell phone numbers. We talked all the time. We'd ask each other questions. We would help each other grow our business. We were all interested in doing better. And Mike Kennedy is a great friend. Mike's now CEO of Indy.
Yeah.
Great guy. Great. You couldn't ask for a better leader than Mike Kennedy. But it changes over time. Jochen Zeitz destroyed the relationship with the dealers and the motor company. He cut off all communication. Just horrible. But Artie has restored that, and he's restored it very quickly. So Harley dealers right now, I'm going to say, are very happy. We are extremely optimistic. We are seeing our businesses return to some type of semblance of normality that we haven't had in years. I mean, between the COVID bump and then the COVID cliff. Artie is restoring that trust because the trust was gone. Jay-Z was the most hated leader at Harley ever in my career. I don't think I'll just see a late leader that was disliked as much as he was. I have a dealer friend that said to me, he goes, he's Southern. He said, George, I can't do a Southern drawl. He said, he goes, I've never hated anybody in my entire life. But if I was to hate somebody, it would be Jochen Zeitz.
And for a Southerner to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this guy, this guy doesn't hate anybody.
Doesn't hate anybody.
That's one thing I've been privileged with Harley. The relationship with the motor company was so good, and we get so many opportunities to get together as dealers. They had the best training in the industry, and that's something Jochen Zeitz completely cut. We get these crap videos that we have to watch for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then do a multiple choice question and answer session. Every department does these. We used to have a week and a half long Harley University that we would fly our team in. We'd fly our managers in, and they would have 2 days for parts and 2 days for sales and a day for finance. And it was this awesome, not just education, but it got all of us together. And we got to be great friends. Some of my best friends in the world are my Harley dealer friends because we spent our entire careers hanging out together at these training sessions at 2 dealer shows a year that are, 3-4 days a piece, and all this training. We 20 groups. We spent a lot of time together. On the power sports store side, you don't have it that much. You have a 20 group, you have maybe a dealer meeting, but they are a lot more pushy, and you don't build a relationship like we've had with Harley. And I will say Ari's bringing that back, and it makes me very happy because I was about ready to get out of this business, like a lot of other dealer friends got out.
Well, one thing I find kind of interesting from my perspective dealing with Harley-Davidson is of course, ADV Rider, the main focus is, we do a lot of business stuff like this, but of course it's adventure riding, and Harley makes the Pan America. Do you think I've been able to get anybody from Harley-Davidson on this podcast to talk about the Pan America? It seems like a really conservative company. I mean, most brands, there's some corporate stuff you got to get through, but you can usually find somebody. We had the head designer from Royal Enfield was on, talking about stuff, and I know they can't tell you what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, everybody gets that, but I was told with Harley-Davidson that I have to prepare the questions. I wouldn't be able to ask anything that wasn't on the list. Did Harley-Davidson lose its swagger?
I mean, Jochen Zeitz he took everything away. Everything that was great about Harley, he took away because all he cared about was the value of the stock. He only cared about showing a bottom line profitability number, and he chopped everything he could chop out of there. I mean, I don't know how many different times he would just go through and just fire, hundreds of people. Now Artie had to make some cuts coming into this, but he had to right size the company and right size production. Where Jochen, it was all about just driving the stock value up. Where Artie's like, yeah, the stock value is important, but if our dealers aren't healthy, none of this other stuff matters. So,
but it is a difficult thing, isn't it? Because you've got to keep, you want to keep the stock price healthy to keep the company healthy. But on the other hand, Harley has they've got a lot of debt. They were selling off part of the financial services side of it, which is where the real money's made, significant money. And then you also have pensions. And so it seems like, you're a businessman. It seems like almost like an impossible sort of formula that you have to come up with to keep everybody kind of sort of happy.
It's a juggling act. Any business is a juggling act, and you've got to balance things. Artie's got a really tough job ahead of it. It's not going to be easy. But what I'm seeing is he's doing the right stuff. Yes, the shareholders are important. I'll go off on another tangent. I wish they were run by I wish they were privately held, by the right privately held.
Yes, yes.
I don't want some shark venture capitalist company coming in buying them up. But they could probably be bought for a couple $1 billion at this point, which, if Artie can turn this thing around, it's all good. I do not like that they are a publicly traded company because I think, somebody like Jochen Zeitz came in and he was only focused on the stock value. He was gonna squeeze the dealers as much as he was going to squeeze as much money out of dealers, and every rock he could turn over and squeeze money out of it, he was going to squeeze that money out of to get the stock value up. I believe that's all he cared about. Whereas, other leaders had a much more balanced approach. I remember Keith Wandell. I was in the DAC towards the end of Keith's reign, and I asked him one of the first meetings we had. I said, Keith, how much of your decisions do you base on a stock value? And Keith, he was a very direct guy. He said exactly what he was thinking, and he would drop an F-bomb or two here and there. And he was like, his answer was F Wall Street. He goes, if I do everything right running this company, Wall Street wins too. He goes, but if I base my decisions on Wall Street first and the company second, he goes, we all lose.
Well, I think everybody wants even if you're not a Harley guy, I think everyone sees the value in a healthy Harley-Davidson. I think there's such a part of the landscape in motorcycling, and love them or hate them, you really, we want them to survive. I think everyone feels the same way. And I wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk today.
Happy to do so. I'll see if I can help you get somebody from Harley for Pan America.
Somebody who doesn't have a pickle in their ass, because they all seem to be like that. So I'm trusting you, George.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we could get Artie on the phone, I'm telling you, the guy is very transparent and very, very easy to talk to. He's just spread so thin right now that there's a lot of people who want access to him, and he's. I mean, I haven't talked to him a whole lot more. And I had back surgery. I had a discectomy a month ago, so I've actually been out of commission for almost a month.
Well, I think let's let Artie get down to work and get some stuff done before we pull him away. But and best of luck with your back. You just had back surgery, as you mentioned, and you've got to stand up now because you've been sitting for too long, and you need to go home.
I'll call Marcus and see if I can get somebody on this Pan American. So
That would be beautiful. Using your
if I
sway,
can help you in the future, please just reach out. Get my cell number.
George. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Well, that does it for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Lowdown Radio Show.